Welcome. You listen to 360 Info. I'm your host, Antonio. What you do for yourself depends on what you think of yourself. What you think of yourself depends on what you know of yourself. And what you know of yourself depends on what you've been told of yourself. The sun is shining here in Cleveland. The weather is pretty good, pretty decent. Got a great show for you today. I'm down here. That's going to be helping out with the NFL draft. So don't know how long I'm going to be with you guys, but we got a great guest. Yeah, that actually really understands that quote in the morning about what you've been told of yourself and what you think of yourself. So we got a great guest in the remote studio. We got Brother Vince holding it down. What's going on, Vince?
Well, I'm enjoying the sunshine, too. But my brother, I'm jumping in my car. I'm driving down to the Atlantic Ocean tomorrow, and I'm going to get some real warmth and some real sunshine. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yes. Man, sounds so good. You gonna hit the links?
I'm actually taking a vacation from golf. I'm taking a vacation to vacation. So I'm going to leave the clubs at home. I know, but I get out 3 or 4 times a summer, so I'm not missing anything. I just want to reconnect with the planet Earth. So I'm going to put my feet in the sand and I'm going to stare at the ocean and the sky.
And yeah, that sounds wonderful. I can't wait. I don't know how much traveling I'm going to be doing, but I'm going to be doing a lot of that around here kind of locally this summer. I'm going to seek out, hey, you remember the parks that we used to go, Squaw Walk, Strawberry Lane, Squire's Castle, all that kind of stuff like that? Well, I'm going to go find me some nooks and crannies all around up in there, break out my lawn chairs, my little small grill, put my feet on the grass and fire up some incense and some meditation music, and that's what's going to be going down.
Yes, that's what's happening. Speaking of what's happening, we have a very special guest today. She is Felicia Harden, and she's a Detroit-born, New York-made filmmaker. She was trained as an occupational therapist at the prestigious Howard University. Many moons ago, she volunteered as an actor for directors, taking a master-level directing film class with the esteemed Ethiopian filmmaker Haile Gerima. And from that, she's gone on to produce a very magnificent film. It's called the Hapi film, and it's not just a film, it's a movement. So with that, we'd like to welcome the 360 Info Network, Ms. Felicia Harden.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing
All
great.
Right.
Doing great. My regret is that we're not on StreamYard, so I don't get to see that $1 million smile. And I joke with our brother Renoko Rashidi, because Dr. Rashidi, I never see him smile as much as he smiles when he's on StreamYard.
Oh my God! You know what? Secretly, that's my man right there. Oh my God, I love me some Dr. Renoko Rashidi. And you know what's funny about that is that I had did my first interview with him. And then maybe a couple days later, I was talking to Dr. Jeffries. And Dr. Jeffries was like, you were just smiling all up in that interview. And he was mocking me. I was like, what is going on over here with these elders and me smiling at Dr. Rashidi?
Yes.
But anyway.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with your disposition. You just seem to be such a happy person, and I think it rubs off on people. So how ironic that we're talking to a happy person about the Hapi film, and it is centered around a magnificent body of water that stretches for a long, long way down the continent of Africa. You have been there. I saw the film that you did. You're on the boat or the cruise ship cruising down the Hapi River and just enjoying yourself and having a great time. So while we get started with talking about the significance of Hapi, just tell us about the beauty of that experience that you had.
Yeah, so, it's so, I just think about what my life looked like, just 3.5 years ago, because 3.5 years ago, I didn't know Taki. I didn't know too much about the Hapi River. One day I was sitting in my car waiting for my kids to come out of a Kumon class, and I bumped into Taki. So talking to him, he was telling me about, he was telling me that he takes groups of people, or he had been taking groups of people to Egypt for about 20 years. And I was like, oh, my God, I literally want to go. And so that's how we connected. And so my first time going it didn't have anything really to do with the film. I was just going as, a tourist with Todd Key's group. And after that, I was sold. It just changed like my whole entire life.
Okay.
And then I had the pleasure to go back and sit with Anthony Browder on the Hapi, and that right there, I was like, oh my God, I was like, my life can't get any better than this. So that river is magic.
Yes. So you are cruising down the Nile with Anthony Browder, and he is one of our most esteemed historians and cultural anthropologists. I mean, he's restoring Karakamun's tomb, and he's got he's got artifacts on display in the museum. I believe it's at Luxor. You were able to connect with these folks. I noticed in your bio that you actually went to Howard University, but you just said that you really didn't know much about that, and then all of a sudden you're immersed in it.
And let me tell you about that. And that's a problem. That's a problem, I think, and that's probably another show about our HBCUs. But this connection, and I feel like, just being in D.C., this is really, when I met Anthony Browder, I told him this story. When I was in D.C. after I graduated from Howard, I was, I was a practicing therapist, but I was also still pursuing my acting career. So my first play was with this group called We Are Africa, by Michael Friend, Soul and Motion Players. And he did this whole show based off of Anthony Browder's Browder Files. Okay. And so that was my first introduction to Anthony Browder, because I was literally in a play about him, about his work, about those essays. And so you think about like 20 years later, I'm sitting now on the Hapi River with him. And I told him, and I joke about him, because I joke with him, when I was at the Luxor Museum and I was looking at the Pyramidium, the only thing I could keep saying was that, oh, this is beautiful. Like I couldn't, it was like something else was coming over me, where the only thing I could keep saying out my mouth every time I saw him was that this is beautiful. Oh God, this is beautiful. And you'll notice in that tape with him, at the end, he kept saying, he's like, oh, this is beautiful, because he's mocking me. But, that was just like, this has just been a whirlwind of events. Yes. It's so wild. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so you're showing the film tonight, so I want to get this information out there really quickly before we go to our first break. You're screening the film tonight, and you're going to have a discussion that follows the film. Tell folks how they can take advantage of this great opportunity and, basically a synopsis of the film.
Okay, so yes, we are premiering Hapi, and the whole name of the documentary is Hapi, the Role of Economics in the Development of Civilization, okay? And we are filming it online tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and right after the film, we're going to have a panel discussion, and we are so excited. You can see, and I don't know if you guys can feel my smiling right now, but Dr. Rashidi is going to host our panel discussion, which is cool because we've never had, someone of his magnitude like hosting the after talk. And we will have a couple of the elders or cast members from the film there. So we have Dr. Georgina Falou, Dr. Leonard and Rosalind Jeffries. I believe we are going to have, definitely Professor James Small. And we're waiting out for two other cast members. And so that's going to be great. And that follows the film. You just go to hapifilm.com, and that's HAPIFILM.com to get you the tickets.
All right.
And
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the film, I was just going to add on, is that the film, it's 2 hours and 12 minutes. So, you sit down and it's beautiful images. You don't want to look at it on your phone. You want to really put it up on like the big screen TV. But it's a snapshot of the economic history, and it's spanning from the dawn of civilization until right now. So we're covering a lot of ground.
Okay. Important ground at that. We are going to invite you all who are listening to us now, and you've heard the spots here on WERE about this film. Go to hopifilm.com and make your reservations. Just the panel discussion that follows it is worth the price of admission, but you can't lose with it. You can't lose with that. Absolutely. You're listening to 360 Info Network right here on AM 1490 WERE with our guest, executive producer of the Hapi film, Felicia Harden. We'll be right back after these messages. We're back. AM 1490 WERE 360 Info Network with Antonio, Vince Robinson, and our guest. She is Felicia Harden, and she is the executive producer of the Hapi film. So you were talking about this great panel of guests that you're going to have on the broadcast tonight following the film, and you mentioned Dr. Runoko Rashidi will actually be handling this for you. How did that happen?
So he was on our show this week talking about his end of the webinar, like his end of the month webinar. And he said that he had bought his ticket, and he wanted everybody to know that he bought his ticket. It wasn't given to him, and that he would be tuning in on Saturday. And he said, and he told everybody that he was going to crash our after talk, our after talks, our panel discussions. And so afterwards, I got off the phone, and I got off the StreamYard with him, and I was talking to Ty Key, and I said, "Listen, Dr. Rashidi is going to roll up on the panel discussion," and he was like, "Word?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "He done told everybody," and and Dr. Rashidi, I love him, but he's pretty much a man of his word. So we were like, "Oh, what are we going to do?" And so I was like, "What?" Instead of trying to figure out how we're going to, put him into this panel discussion, because the discussion is about, it has all the cast members, right? And he wasn't actually in our film because he was traveling. And so we were just like, how is this going to work or whatever? And so we were just like, what, how about just have him host it? Because he knows everybody that's in the film. They're all good friends. And I think that's the best type of, thing to witness is when you have people who know each other just having a conversation. Because he had a conversation with Anthony Browder and Hunter Adams on our show, and that was great, And I think that, we were just thinking that would be a better thing for him to do. And so we asked him, and he was like, yes. We were like, yes. We're so excited when someone says yes to us.
Yes, yes.
So, that's how we got Dr. Rashidi.
I fully relate to that. It's funny how you talk about how things happened for you when you ended up in Egypt on the Nile with Anthony Browder. I'll just go ahead and tell this story. A few years back, I was in Ghana with Dr. David Whitaker and a colleague of mine, Professor Mwatabu Okanta, and we had a pre-dawn ceremony at the dungeon at Elmina. And after we poured the libation and everything, the group walked down to the beach, and we were all given a piece of fruit to throw out into the water and to have our conversations with the ancestors. So I threw my piece of fruit out in the ocean, and I said a few things, but one of the things that I mentioned was that I want to be a conduit to bring African culture to African Americans and others in the diaspora. That night, I got a Facebook inbox message from Dr. Runoko Rashidi. And he asked, and he asked me if I could bring him to Cleveland. And of course, I said absolutely. And from that, we went on to do 4 different visits by him in the space on Larchmere where we have cultural activity. So, it really is amazing how things connect and how things happen, And then years later, I'm on that cruise ship floating down the Hapi River with Dr. Rashidi, and we're sitting on the 4th floor of that magnificent vessel. It's just amazing,
Wow.
So I completely relate to how you were feeling. I think I probably felt the same way when I was in that hot air balloon flying over the Valley of the Kings and Queens.
Oh, that is wonderful. Yes, I was able to do that. I was. I think people are missing the boat in terms of really understanding the power of going to Africa. Like, it is so much power that, that you just, it's just, I really feel that even when you're in the plane going there, it's just like this connection that starts to happen, and something just kind of takes over, and it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look here, I'm saying beautiful again, but it is beautiful.
It is beautiful. It really
Yeah.
is. So let's talk about the role of economics in the development of civilization. You were very intentional about having that as part of the title. The film has a lot to say. Why did you go in that direction?
So all right. So the film, the idea for to connect Hapi to economics was all Taiki and the ancestors. It was them, because he started this film about 7 years ago. Where the idea came to him 11 years ago, and he started to shoot it 7 years ago. And then it was a rough start, and he was like, this is not how I want this to go down. So he shelved it for, I think, 2 more years, and then he started shooting it. So by the time I got involved in the project, they had maybe shot about 80% of the film. And so things were really just laid out, in terms of really making this connection to the economic piece. Because a lot of times when we think about economics, we just think about money. But, back then we didn't have like money what we have, like how we have money today. It was literally this cooperative economics, or this cooperative feeling or communal feeling that we had, and it was all centered around this river. Because every year the river would rise, and then it would or flood, and then it would leave this rich silt. And there we were able to grow anything, anything and everything we wanted. But it was this communal, trading and barter system that was happening, which was really the beginning of the economic constructs that we know now. And when Taiki started to really look at that, he was like, okay, so we started here with this, this love fest. That's the only way I can describe it in terms of not only giving and taking from each other, but also the nature, the actual silt, the ground. It wasn't like we just planted crops and then we just, went away. Like it, and I love that quote that Dr. Noble says in the film. And, it's just not like we, just kind of just took from nature and didn't replenish. But that wasn't how, we got down as people. And that's not how we get down as people right now, But back then, it was just this reciprocity of love, of trade goods, all of that. And so when we're looking at that, we look at, okay, well, this is how we started, but then how are we where we are right now in terms of money and the disconnect and the cooperative economic piece that's not really working right now for us. It has in the past, but it's not working now. And so Hapi is really a film so that we can really look at that and see how do we get back to that type of that principle. The pyramid analysis that Dr. Jeffries talks about, the culture, economics, and politics, having to work all together for us to get back to that Hapi Valley, type of community.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
So when you talk about economics and you're using this metaphor of sorts with the river, and the river represents current, and currency, of course, is money. And we are in the midst of an economic reset. We're looking at the looming certainty of a new world order, and we're seeing drastic changes in the way money is being used, it's being stored. We're looking at all these digital assets. You mentioned Taiki started this film over 7 years ago, and right now we're in the midst of this rapid change. And I'm just wondering if you all are plugged into the relationship between economics and the changing of the world's money supply.
Yes. And it's so funny, we've been, because I know in the film, we talked to Dr. Boyce Watkins, and he was, he kind of talked about this whole cryptocurrency. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
And yeah. And so he kind of touched on it a little bit, but since then we've been doing more research because we have to understand we have to understand this so we can get involved. We can't let this, pass us by. But we don't. But in the film, we just talk about it a little bit because at that time we had, it wasn't like illuminating like it is right now. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't really have a chance to really go down in great detail with Dr. Watkins about it. But that's something that we're definitely getting more information about now, so we can pass it on to our viewers.
Okay.
And
but you know what? Let me interject something at this particular point here. How you doing, Felicia Antonio?
Hi. How you doing?
All right. Sister, I'm doing okay. You know what? Again, here's me. I always got to look at this root effort here and our foundational piece, and it's definitely that's been a problem for the African American community, not knowing finance and not being involved and not having our finger on the pulse about the economics of what's going on and teaching our kids about business and things of that nature. That definitely is one of the foundations and the basic. But what I think is even an overreaching issue, point two, that has to, I guess, maybe work in hand with it, because what they say, a fool and money soon do part. We can have some dollars and cents, but if we're not conscientious enough to understand how to use those dollars and cents, we just a bunch of folks who got money that's still supplying the same people or the same system that is oppressing us. You know what I mean? And that's something that Dr. Amos Wilson talk about, our consciousness, because our consciousness is being fueled by a system that is made up to access to keep giving them money. It's based around that. He would say, "Hey, raise your hands. Tell me how many, talking to black folks, how many of y'all owe some major money to somebody that's black?" He said, "I'll wait." Okay, so how many of y'all owe major money to somebody of someone, of another ethnic group? All of us gonna wait. So we owe major debt. So you just like the nation that's over there in Africa, who you talk about, y'all just in debt. They steal your labor, so steal your resources, and at the same time got you indebted. So we're in the same system. So it's about changing that change your consciousness, like he said with the bus boycott. Change your way of thinking. You don't have to worry about changing them, because they'll automatically change because you change your way you think, period.
Well, see, that's where Dr. Leonard Jeffries, and that's why I love it in the film, he talks about this connection between economics, culture, and politics, and we can't have one without the other. So like it's what you're saying, our cultural values dictate what we do with our money. And so if we are disconnected from culture, then therefore we will be disconnected from, to our money, and we are going to give our money to white folks. And so it's like,
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, we need these three things, and you are absolutely right. And so that's part of our movement. We have 4 principles, and that's number 2. That's number 3. Become financially astute with your money. Because we have to understand the mechanisms of money, but we also have to, start understanding who we are as people. And we got to connect back to that history so that we don't be fools with our money.
So I noticed when I was doing my research on Felicia Harden that we have some Facebook friends in common, and one of them is Mbwebe Ishangi. Are you familiar with Mbwebe?
Yes. I mean, we're from Facebook.
Okay.
From Facebook.
All right. Well, we've actually had him as a guest on the show, and we have connected on how to develop cryptocurrency. And one thing that he's involved in is mining of Bitcoin. So it might be a good idea to connect with Brother Mbwebe, because as I see it, if you can connect with a technology that creates money, that it literally makes money, you can use that to fuel whatever you're working on. I know that they're developing a university in Ghana. It's called Obakasi University of Excellence. And Dr. Whitaker and Dr. George Fraser and some of the other luminaries that you mentioned are involved in this. Are you aware of it?
No, I'm not aware of this.
Okay.
But I'm about to be aware of this.
Okay. Well, you can actually find it online, Obakasi University of Excellence. They are building an Afrocentric university. in Ghana, and it is going to be built in the shape of an ankh. I'll leave it there.
Oh my God! Okay. Oh gosh.
Yes.
Okay. Wait.
And they got a lot of the countries involved as well. That a lot of it start off online, so they have a lot of approvals from a lot of the different countries as well. So that's why one thing in dealing with our ancestors, timing is always important, and it looked like it may be with some awareness with our ancestors. Timing is it seems to play a role in this thing of that maybe this awakening, as far as the schools is concerned, is right on time for that. It seems like it's right in place, and reading some stuff about, Africa 2021 and beyond, that's one of the things that they talk about, as far as the school and online classes and all that kind of stuff is one of the things of the future.
Yes. And
absolutely. I'm going to get connected to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
I can share some more information with you. Maybe I can drop the link for the website into your chat on Facebook. And
Please do.
You can connect that way. But I think it's really important for us to really appreciate that effort because it coincides with your movement. You're one of your main focuses is elevating in terms of education, in terms of creating cultural awareness and an understanding of how that relates to who we are today and what we should be doing. And one of our biggest issues is we are so disconnected from knowledge of ourselves that we don't know. Mm-hmm. We don't know ourselves. We don't understand our connection to all the science and the culture and the art and everything that really has laid a foundation, as you say, for civilization. I mean, what would the world be without the contributions that Dr. Browder or Professor Browder talks about? Our contributions to civilization. What would civilization be without what happened in the Nile Valley thousands of years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is one of the things, and every time you read a book or you do any type of research, it deepens that appreciation for our ancestors, and it deepens your knowing for yourself. And, a lot of times, I remember just, I've read Anthony Browder's book years and years and years ago. And now, picking it, dusting it off and looking at it and reading it again, I'm like, oh, my God, it's like it's even now it's a deeper appreciation, for just who we are. And I think and that's the piece, with what, we were saying earlier, is that if we can just connect to who we are, like that source, okay, and really connect to it. Tap in. I love that. I love that phrase that Browder uses all the time. He's like, tap in. We have to just tap into that ancestral realm. Then these other things become way easier for us to manage, and and for us to excel in. But we have to tap in.
Yes.
We have to tap into the source.
Yeah, it's funny you would mention reading a book later. I read Ancient Future, The Teachings and Prophetic Wisdom of the Seven Hermetic Laws of Ancient Egypt. And I read it during the winter solstice this year. I read it in 2 days. And reading that book again in this 64-year-old brain and body, it was transformative because it just so resonated. So I can fully appreciate what you said. What can we look forward to in terms of the Hapi movement now? It seems as though you have some momentum. You're doing weekly broadcasts, and you're bringing all these luminaries to have these great conversations. So what are you building now?
Well, so that's our thing. We love sitting and chatting with people on our show, Happy Talks, which usually is every Wednesday or maybe Thursday. But it needs to be anchored in action because it's nice to talk. It's nice to read a book. But if we're not doing anything, then what are we doing here? And so that's part of our movement. So we are in the process of creating things for people to do. And so when you were talking about this financial university, well, we have been working on some financial classes, to help people to become financially astute with their money. And so I definitely want to, have a conversation with this university that you're speaking to in Ghana, and just making sure that our messaging is the same. That's really important to us. But it's it's the movement of action. So every time, that's why when our guests leave, we're like, okay, what can somebody do? Like, what can we do right now? How can we help? And a lot of, sometimes it's not just about, you may not be able to, let's say, get to Kemet and be part of Anthony Browder's, dig, but you can contribute money, and so we're always suggesting that people, put their dollar, where they're talking about, because we're seeing that a lot of people in the cultural, realm of people, conscious community, sometimes it seems like it's a lot of talk, but we don't really see people doing stuff. So we're really trying to urge people to do stuff, but we're trying to create pathways for them to do it as well. So now we have our financial classes. We're going to start hitting the road with Hapi into, different cities so that we can just empower people in, across the United States and definitely overseas when we can get there.
Okay. And is Dr. Watkins connected with your financial awareness?
No.
Okay.
No. We've actually teamed up with the Appeal Federal Credit Union.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, we're working alongside with them with these financial classes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Todd on hold.
Okay. We have a caller on the line. I'll go ahead and bring him in before we go to break. So let's welcome the 360 Info Network, our brother Todd. Todd, what's your question?
Hey, Antonio. Hey, Vince. Hey, Felicia.
Hey.
I have an answer and I have a question. The answer to your question, which you may not have actually wanted to answer to, as to how we would be if it wasn't for the knowledge that came out of the Nile Valley thousands of years ago, we would be a much, much more violent society, because those people set the basis for the high pursuit of knowledge, and it's so strong that came out of there that it has no rival in history of the expansion of knowledge, correct knowledge. My question to Felicia is, why did you pick this particular credit union? And can you elaborate some as to what degree they've been working with you as far as the expansion of financial awareness and knowledge?
Thanks for the question.
Yeah.
All right, I'll talk to y'all later.
Okay.
Yeah, we were actually introduced to them by Anthony Browder, because he's been working with them from their inception. And so we had Dr. Kalechi come on to our show, and he broke down, why Appeal Federal Credit Union, because right now they're in the stage of collecting money, trying to, get their first $250,000 so that they can officially open up. And when we started looking at the board of directors and people who have, put into this, like Nkechi, I cannot remember Nkechi's last name. It's on the tip of my tongue because I interviewed her. But some of these, Dr. Renoka Rashidi, we were like, okay, they must know what they're talking about because we appreciate what they're doing, and they don't actually put their names on stuff that they haven't really, looked into. So when we started doing our research, we were like, okay, everything that they're saying, like their core principles, actually align with Hapi's core principles. So, we were like, okay, let's work together. Let's see what we can do, because we, by ourselves, were like, okay, we know we want to start teaching some type of financial literacy to our people, but we didn't have any expertise in that area. We had a theme, and we know what we wanted to cover, but we didn't have the actual expertise. And so once we found out about Appeal, we were like, there it is. And then we had a conversation. And so we started, we were like, okay, this is a great marriage of, two entities.
Yes.
Let's help each other.
Okay. So you're talking about financial literacy, and I'm also mindful of the educational component. Years ago, there was a series of films called Hidden Colors, and there was conversation about some of the historical inaccuracies. I think I had a conversation with Brother Browder about some of the things that were issues, and he created a study guide to right those wrongs. When we look at your film, we see that, based on who was in it and what you brought forth, there is a lot of truth, if not all truth, that's involved in that film. And I just look at it as an opportunity to inform the masses of people who don't get what you can offer with a film like that? You mentioned going to Howard University and not learning about those things until you left. So could you talk a little bit about the importance of the film as a tool for raising historical, cultural, and economic awareness?
Yeah. So part of when we started doing the marketing plan, right? We were like, okay, how are we going to get this to people, and who do we want to target? And it's so, so we were like, okay, we have the film, but we also have, if not like hundreds of hours of other, interviews. I mean, of things that all our cast members, and there's 30 of them, said that didn't make the film. And so we are in the process of putting together a visual study guide, so that people can get a more holistic look at history, and a more holistic look at economics and history, and just more a holistic look of us, right? And so we are, and that's a piece of us just kind of getting out. Like, COVID is killing us with this online screening because we can't touch and see and feel people. But that's a piece of it. We want to, not only be able to show this film, but say, okay, here are some courses, so it goes more in detail about everything that we're talking about, like the pyramid analysis. We talk about it in the film, but there's so much more, about, that system that can potentially free us from, like what you were saying before, in terms of this, disconnect from money and from culture and from our politics. And so we're definitely looking to I guess the word is package, a learning curriculum for Hapi.
Okay.
Like, that's always been part of it.
That sounds great, and I want to get to another analogy and another one of those synchronicities that happen in life when we come back from the break. You're listening to 360 Info Network on AM 1490 WERE with Hamtonio and Vince Robinson, and our guest Felicia Harden, executive producer of the Hapi film. We'll be back. We're back, AM 1490, and this is 360 Info Network with Hamtonio and Vince Robinson, and our guest, Felicia Harden. She is the executive producer of the Hapi film. Before we took the break, I just wanted to pass on something to our listening audience. There are only, I'm going to say, 1 degree of separation. They used to say 6, but it just so happens that a few weeks ago I interviewed a woman who was in the film Sankofa, and as I was reading your bio, I noticed that you had a direct connection to Haile Gerima, who is the Ethiopian filmmaker who created that film. So just wanted to reflect on that and let you know that we actually had those films that film screened here in Cleveland. We had post-film discussions, just as you're doing with the Hapi film. And, when you look at films like that, they are an excellent entry point for folks who don't have an awareness of African culture and our relationship to those who are on the other side of the world. So I'm just wondering, moving forward, I know you've been using the virtual platform, but at any point in the future, do you plan to take the film to the streets, so to speak?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me tell you, we are dying to take the film to the streets. We have been dying since 2020 to get this film out because, this is the thing of with Black folks. We need to see each other. We need to, feel each other's energy. We need to hug. Like, we need these things to just be okay. And so we've been looking at trying to maneuver in this post-COVID world, and we hope to be able to get out hopefully by the end of the summer, if not, definitely fall. Okay.
And have you picked out any cities? Can you mention that?
Yes, Detroit, since, from Detroit. But we, the interesting thing is that we had actually started to, and in some accounts, pay money in terms of securing our theatrical tour last year. So like the Charles Wright Museum is where we're going to be, when we get to Detroit. We're going to be in Atlanta, definitely the Schomburg here in New York. we were going to have our premiere there or here. And we wanted to hit California. I think we had like 5 cities. Baltimore was one, D.C., Atlanta, here, and in Detroit. Yeah, we were going to start with those first.
Okay. Well, I got to throw a hand up for Cleveland. There is a venue here called the Front Stage Multiplex. It was once Regal Cinemas, so they have like, I don't know, maybe 12 theaters in there, and it is Black-owned. So, yeah.
Wait, tell me the name again. You said Front?
The Front Stage Multiplex.
Okay. You know what? I have to, this is like when I talk to Professor Small, I have a little notebook. As soon as if I call him or if I see that he calls me, I just pick up my little notebook and pencil, and because I know I'm going to need it. Because, it's like you guys are just spitting out all this good information, which is great.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like we would love, like that sounds right up our alley. And you could host our after, panel discussion.
Mm-hmm. That would be wonderful. I'd be happy to do it for you. So... But yeah, don't sleep on Cleveland.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just saying, we had talked to Taki about it when I first brought him on the show.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and this is like, when we talk about like the complement of men and women, and why this is so important, like for our existence, this is probably the best example or best lesson for me in terms of why men and women need to work together. So Taki is big ideal person, and then I take big ideals and put organization to it.
Okay.
So I appreciate having this conversation with you guys so we can make this happen.
Yes. So tell us a bit more about the Wednesday and Thursday broadcasts that you're doing. Yeah,
so Happy Talks, and let me tell you just how, let me back up for a minute. So when we were going to have our premiere, we had a sort of like industry premiere with our cast members and people that we wanted to help, that were going to help us promote the film in March of last year. And our opening premiere date for everyone was going to be in April at the Schomburg here in New York City. So, of course, COVID happened, and so we were sitting there thinking, like, oh, my God, like we really got the momentum going again because, like I said, this film had been around for, at this point, about 6 or 7 years. And they were doing partial screenings places to get more money. So they would show 45 minutes of clips that they put together and to help, to raise money to finish filming Hapi. And so at this point, we were like, we had a little thing going. And so COVID happened. We're like, oh, my God, what are we going to do? So we were sitting there thinking, like, well, maybe we'll just we got to figure out a way to keep people, thinking Hapi. Just keep thinking Hapi. And so we thought about just sitting down and interviewing, a few of the cast members that were here locally. Dr. Jeffrey, Professor Small, and so we were like, okay, that's what we're going to do. But then, with all the restrictions and people started getting afraid and this and that, we were like, okay, we got to figure a way to, still do this, but maybe just online. And at that point, some things were virtual, but a lot of things really wasn't virtual prior to that time. And so that's literally how we started. I went online, I researched some things. I was like, oh, we can just go on YouTube. And at that point, I think we might have had 600 people. No, we didn't have 600 people. I think we had 400, and I think it was 442. That's the number that I always remember. 442 followers on our YouTube page. And so we, Taki started making some calls, and our first guest was Dr. Wade Nobles, who is also in our film. And so after that first one, I was like, wow, this is great, because to me it felt like school. It felt like we were learning something, and this was nice. So we were like, okay, let's just keep doing this because we know COVID will be over in a couple of weeks, and we'll go ahead and get on, with our theatrical tour in cities. So that never happened, but Hapi Talks actually just started to take off, and people pretty soon, like this, even now, like people are like, you have a film? Because they only know Hapi Talks. Right. But this platform has been really great because it's allowed us to connect with our audience that we will see when we do our tour. but it's also been able to like just bring this level of scholarship so that people just know about things, like know what type of research or where to start, and just to find a community online. And it's been really nice. And a lot of people thank us like for bringing this every week. But, we're just like, we would definitely thank you, and you're welcome. But we learn so much. Like, it's so much, we're learning so much from it. It's been transformative for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just conversations that you've had with Brother Renoko, I'm like you. You're like the child that's sitting on the floor with your legs folded,
Yes.
I mean.
Yes. And it's so funny because with Dr. Renoko, we reached out to him, and he was just like, I mean, he didn't say no. He was like, he just didn't respond. And he secretly, we found out that he called Anthony Browder. He's like, who are these happy people? What they about? And so Browder was like, no, they good. They cool, because at this point we had Anthony Browder and Taki have a long history of knowing each other because they've been doing conferences and lecturing for years and years and years, right? And so they already had like a connection. So once Anthony Browder came on our show and then he interviewed Taki, people were like, it may be some legitimacy to Hapi, right? And so, Dr. Renoko was just trying to figure out, was everything okay on the up and up? So once he came on one time, I was like, oh my God. And I remember being so mad because I was like, I wish I could do this interview. Like he and I, it always comes to timing, right? So he was like, no, I'm going to do Dr. Rashidi. I'm like, okay, fine. And so I think he did the first two, because after he did one with us, we were like, okay. And we didn't want to ask him, like, you want to come back on? But it was nice because he was doing these end of the month webinars. And so he kind of, he reached out like, I can come back on. We were like, yes. And since then, we haven't let go.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, we just have a couple minutes left. I want you to give folks the details on how they can view Hapi Talks on Wednesdays or Thursdays, Facebook and YouTube, and how they can check in on the Hapi film screening tonight.
Okay. So it's great. We make things very easy for everybody to find us. On all our social media platforms, it's Hapi Film. HAPIFILM. And there is when you can find out what we're doing, who's going to be on the next show. Just subscribe to our YouTube page. You can subscribe to our, and make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, because we always let everybody know, this is the new person that we're going to interview for this week. And sometimes, the last couple of weeks we've been doing 2 interviews. And we hope to sort of get that to increase, in doing that. And you can always find information about everything and everything about Hapi on hapifilm.com. Okay. Also, it's very important when you go on to hapifilm.com is to sign up for our newsletter, because the newsletter comes out every month where we are talking about, we put some financial one-on-one news, which is actually written by Appeal Federal Credit Union. They are, providing the article for us every month. And then we have a health article with this group that we teamed up with, Black Silt Yoga Team, a couple out of Atlanta. And then we do a financial innovator from the past who has, allowed us to be where we are right now. And we have an article that we just do about Hapi, like what's going on with Hapi. And then we also will showcase a Black-owned business. So it's important when you go to hapifilm.com is to actually sign up for the newsletter so that you can get this newsletter every month. You can also get tickets for our screening tonight, which will be May 1st, which is tonight, Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where after the film, you will be sent a link to partake in a panel discussion that will be hosted by Dr. Renoko Rashidi and some of the cast members. Okay. So everything if you don't know anything, just go to Hapi Film, just go to Google and type in Hapi Film, and everything else comes up.
All right. Well, Felicia, thank you so much for joining us and providing us that portal to self-awareness and understanding of economics and the development of civilization. Join them tonight online. We'd like to thank you for joining us, and we'd also like to thank our listening audience for tuning in today to 360 Info Network. Thanks to our engineer, Tristan Sanchez, for pulling everything together. My brother, Hamtonio, I know he's out there in the field working hard. But we appreciate him in providing this platform for us. And don't forget, reach out to Stephen E. Boyd. Become a sponsor of 360 Info Network right here on AM 1490. You can reach him at 216-526-1297. That's 216-526-1297. Until then, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make it a great day, Cleveland. Peace.